Alright, let's just jump right into this. 2012 is a Roland Emmerich film that was released in 2009. It is a disaster film, so you know it's going to be good. This review is not going to be done in any kind of particular order. I'm just going to bounce around, just cover the things that I particularly hate about this movie and all the things that I considered wrong, and these ideas the movie got wrong, and the way the movie tried to manipulate the audience into thinking it had a good lesson and was basically a good movie. So here we go. So basically the story starts out, we find out that there's a disaster. We're on the brink of a disaster of some sort, and the government knows this, and they are going around collecting stuff which they consider culturally significant to the human population, human race. And at the same time, we find out that they are knocking off people who try to squeal on them for the sake of humanity, using the guys that, if everyone was to find out, they would basically erupt in anarchy. We get to see this go underway by the bombing of a French art collector, or head of art, some sort of something. Get his car blown up in the middle of a fucking tunnel like Princess Diana or something, and I've watched this like 10 times and I still can't figure out how this happened. I don't know if they had a grenade launcher from underground or something. I love how it's the government doing this and they're using a grenade launcher. Real subtle, guys. Nobody's gonna, question that. There's not gonna be any kind of evidence left after that. It's kind of amusing that Joe Pesci in Casino can knock off a woman with a little silencer and get away with it clean, and you guys use a grenade launcher. Okay, to be fair, I keep saying grenade launcher, but I suppose it could have been some sort of car bomb, but it just doesn't make sense to me that they would put a timer on a car bomb. Why don't you just blow him up once he gets in the car? What's the point of setting it so that when he's driving, he suddenly blows up? What if he's in the middle of an intersection? Oh, now everybody's asking questions. Gee, I wonder why. And guess what? If you set the bomb to explode when he gets in the car, he doesn't have time to make a phone call. Wow! Isn't that a good idea? Hone. But no, we get a car explosion out of goddamn nowhere. Why? You're making a disaster film wherein the entire West Coast bursts into flames and magma and falls into the goddamn ocean. Do we really need to see a car blow up? Why are you competing with yourself? So thanks a lot for that. And also thanks for Woody Harrelson's character. I don't know why it had to be Woody Harrelson. You could have picked some bum off the street. He didn't have to really do any character changes or anything. You just had to find a maniac. A maniac who could somehow hack into the radio waves and get on the radio station. A maniac who somehow could produce flash films in order to warn the public. And this is where it gets really good. Why would some guy be so pressed on pushing his stupid radio station that's a pirate radio station, which means it can't get ratings, to people that are doomed, who are all going to die anyways, and he knows he's going to die anyways? What is the point? And my favorite part is that he thinks he's some sort of fucking genius of some sort, that he comes up with his flash videos to blow the lid off the conspiracy and everything. Hey, asshole! Why don't you make a stupid show about the board you got hanging up on your wall of people knocked off by the government? Why don't you make copies of that and send that out? Why don't you talk about that on your radio show? I'll bet that would get somebody's attention, you dick. First of all, he doesn't have any towers, so his broadcast radius is probably maybe 20, 30 miles, and he's only talking about Yellowstone and the choppers flying overhead. When we first meet him, that's the only thing he tells us. And we can see the choppers flying overhead. Tell us something we don't know. He knows exactly what the government is doing somehow. He's got names, he's got evidence, he's even got a fucking map to the place in China where the arcs are. Why don't you talk about that on your radio show? Why don't you post that on your stupid Flash game fucking video thing you're posting? He's sitting there taking stupid calls from people who have nothing to say. He's only talking about Yellowstone and volcanoes. Nobody wants to listen to the ramblings of a crazy guy. Why don't you take the evidence you have from your board, your map to fucking China, and go to the fucking police station or the press and do something about it? News stations do stories on babies that dance, for God's sake. If you present it in the correct way, somebody is going to believe you and investigate it. But not if you're rambling like a bumpkin from Bumfuck in your fucking trailer about volcanoes in Yellowstone. But no, he's more concerned about his doomed show that broadcasts to doomed people, which he has no intention of doing anything about except stand there and talk. Even at the end where he dies, all he does is stand there and talk. Oh, and this isn't really a flaw, but I just have this question. Why did they kill the boyfriend character? He was a good guy. He flew the planes that got everybody to safety when nobody else could do it. He legitimately cared about the woman. He legitimately cared about the kids. He was pretty much nice to John Cusack's character, and even at one point he concedes that John Cusack's character was the better man and a lucky man. He was a good guy, and what do? They grind him up in the meat grinder, in the gears. They give him probably one of the worst on-screen deaths that I've ever seen. Can you imagine that? He was ground up leg first slowly within the gears of heavy machinery. The only death I can even think of that comes to even partially as horrific as that was that guy in that Jackie Chan movie. I think it was Rumble in the Bronx. The guy who goes through the wood chipper. I think that might have been worse than what this guy went through. This guy was like hamburger by the time he came out. They killed him. He was a nice guy. He wasn't like a jerk or anything. He wasn't, hindering anybody. The only reason he was technically, quote unquote, in the way was because John Cusack and the woman couldn't suddenly get back together at the end because he was there. So they had to kill him. They couldn't just say, oh, well, you know what? I concede, And he was on his way to conceding. He was talking about it to them on their way to the fucking Ark. And then they get to the Ark and they kill this guy. And what the fuck, Roland? Why did you kill all the Russians? Why'd you kill all the pilot guy dies, the billionaire head guy dies, his girlfriend dies, only the two kids are spared, and the only reason they're spared is because they can't kill kids on screen. And even though they were portrayed in a somewhat stereotypical and negative spotlight, the Russians were the most charismatic and enjoyable characters in my opinion. They had personality, they were funny, they were bursting on screen. I felt like they were like stealing the show. I mean, that's the only reason I can surmise why they would kill them all. Alright, this is the end of part 1. Part 2 is going to cover the finale and the reason why this movie was so terrible because of the ending. And we'll get to that in part 2.